Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Graying Jedi podcast. These are the Graying Jedi Council chambers. Joining me as always, Jedi Master Psyllium Maas, Lord Uther, and I am UrzaMaster. And today we endeavor to move deeper in time. In a galaxy far, far away, we join the Acolyte, which just debuted this week on Disney+. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend you go out, get yourself Disney+, watch Kenobi, and then start watching The Acolyte. But I won't take anything more away. Jedi Master Psyllium Maas, let's hear some background information on the latest and greatest in the Star Wars franchise.
Thank you, Jedi Master UrzaMaster. Thank you, Jedi Master Lord Uther. Thank you, all of you Star Wars fans here, abroad, and beyond. We are kicking off a new cycle of Graying Jedi, and we have a brand new show, as Jedi Master UrzaMaster suggested, set 100 years before The Phantom Menace, which would make it 132 years before Episode 4, A New Hope. And this is a period that I'm very excited to be joining because it is set at the end days of the High Republic. Now, for the last 3 years, Lucasfilm Publishing and Disney Books and everyone has launched this publishing campaign called the High Republic, in which they have books for grown-ups, for young adults, for middle schoolers. They have concurrent comic book series. They have audio books. It's a huge, huge, huge endeavor. And they've done it so far. They're just kicking off their wave 3 of this time cycle, in which we have no Skywalkers and no Palpatines and no Empires, but instead, what were the Guardians of Peace and Justice doing, again, several centuries before we run into our familiar crew? And so I've read these books, and I've read the comic books, and I've been dying to see this era represented on the small screen, on the big screen, and that is what The Acolyte from series creator Leslie Headland is giving us, a glimpse into that world. With a whole new set of characters that you won't be able to find in those books or comic books necessarily, except for one, and we will touch on Jedi Master Vernestra Rowe shortly. But this is The Acolyte. It did premiere this week on June 4th. It is set to run for about 8 episodes for its first season. There have been rumors that this story may extend beyond that. We'll have to wait and see how Star Wars fans embrace this new chapter. Leslie Headland was the writer-director of the first installment, titled Lost Found, and she directed the second. She directed the first and second installments, but she didn't write the second episode. That was by Jason McAuliffe and Charmaine DeGratte. Were the 2 credited writers for the second episode, Revenge Justice. And you can already see from the first 2 episode titles that this show is going to explore duality. And it's going to explore different sides from one to the other. Light, dark, good, evil, revenge, justice, and so on and so forth. Leslie Headland was born in 1980. She's from Maryland. She did several movies before she got into television, including a film called Bachelorette from 2012 that starred Kirsten Dunst, Lizzie Kaplan, and Isla Fisher. And that was actually based on a stage play that Leslie had written, so you might want to check that out on streaming, Bachelorette. It's about 12 years old. She also did a remake of About Last Night, and all of us Gen Xers remember the original with Rob Lowe, Demi Moore, Jim Belushi, Elizabeth McGovern. Well, you probably didn't realize they remade it 10 years ago. And Leslie apparently was behind that. That starred Kevin Hart. And I can't speak to its quality. I just remember thinking fondly of the 1986 Chicago set yuppie romantic comedy drama. And then she got into television and worked with Netflix on a show that began in 2019 called Russian Doll. And that starred Natasha Lyonne, Greta Lee, Chloe Sevigny, and it had a kicky premise, kind of took a Groundhog's Day approach to murder. A video game developer is killed on her 36th birthday, at her 36th birthday party, and has to keep reliving her death until she can solve the crime as to who wanted her dead. So, and it's got comedy and drama and a thriller aspects, and it's kind of a melange. And that ran for a couple of seasons and got a lot of notice on Netflix. And it was because of that attraction that she fell into the orbit of Kathleen Kennedy and the folks at Lucasfilm. And she was, Leslie, by all accounts, was a passionate Star Wars fan, particularly the somewhat maligned prequels. Absolutely loved George Lucas's 3 prequels. And it could have been when she was growing up at the time and when they first struck her, but she embraced them wholeheartedly and has now embarked on this chapter to go before the prequels, as we said, a good 100 years before. We have a cast that you may recognize some of the performers from. They've done interesting and varied works. We have Amandla Stenberg playing a dual role, one of the surprises that was unveiled in the premiere of The Acolyte. She's playing twin sisters Osha and May. You've seen Amanda in The Hunger Games, The Hate You Give, Bodies, 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 very much in the zeitgeist. Lee Hung-jae, you're going to remember him from Netflix's Squid Game, one of the most popular shows on the planet a couple of seasons ago. In fact, season 2 is coming, according to all reports. He plays the stern but compassionate Jedi Master Saul. We have Manny Jacinto from The Good Place. He plays a squirrely, sort of shadowy associate of May's named Kimir, and we are introduced to him. We have Daphne Keene playing Sol's current Padawan, Jecki Lon, and she was the young girl in Logan, the film that killed off Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and she also was the lead in HBO's His Dark Materials, which was an adaptation of The Golden Compass and The Subtle Knife and those books. Charlie Barnett plays the greatest Jedi name in streaming we've seen so far, Yord Fandar, and you might recognize his six-pack abs from Chicago Fire, and he was also in Leslie Headland's Russian Doll. Carrie-Anne Moss, we'll be getting to her shortly, playing Master Indara. You have the actor who took over for Peter Mayhew playing Chewbacca and basically all Wookiees, including Chrysanthemum in the Book of Boba Fett. He's I believe he's a Scandinavian actor, Jonas Suotamo. He'll be playing the first Wookiee Jedi seen on screen, Kalneka. And we had Rebecca Henderson, who is actually the wife of series creator Leslie Headland. She is playing Vernesta Rowe, and I mention her because she is the only character from the publishing High Republic that has been brought to actual life, much like Ahsoka and Sabine Wren and all of those characters that Dave Filoni adapted from his animated shows. So we get to see Vernesta Rowe. In the books, she's a precocious young Jedi Knight of like 19 years old. One of the fastest to make Jedi Knight. Basically she was an accomplished Padawan and became a virtuoso with the Force. We're seeing her now, several decades later, much older, but exactly how she's described in the books. Green skin, Marillion tattoos on her forehead, and a very cool lightsaber, which I'm not going to spoil here, but I can't wait for you guys to see Vernesta's variation on the Jedi's most prized weapon. Gentlemen, this was a busy 2-episode premiere. We had 9 or 10 characters. We had 4 planets, brand new to the Star Wars universe, and a 5th that was name-checked that I'm sure we'll be either flashing back to or visiting in the episodes to come. We even had a new profession, if any of us are seeking gainful employment, mechnics. I did not realize, in the Phantom Menace, we saw that astromechs were traditionally utilized to repair the ships when they came under fire and their shields were collapsing and so forth. I did not realize that there were actual rules and regulations governing that. Leave it to those crafty Nemoidians, a nice prequel callback, to be utilizing human mechnics in place of astromechs and droid labor. But here's what I want to focus on, and then I'm anxious to hear the Council's results. A couple of big picture notes for this show. First of all, as my lightsaber ratings will reveal later, I had a grand old time watching this. I was especially pleased that although it is very much a Star Wars mythology show, it does not require you to have read High Republic books and comic books. It does not require you to have done your homework, if you will. You can drop right into this show and understand the stakes of the show and watch it with your friends, your family, your fellow Force users. And you're going to see where it's going without having to lean on the crutch of years and decades of accumulated mythology. That being said, this is a personal Star Wars show right from the jump. And what I mean by that is we're not dealing with far-flung galactic consequences. Like, will Grand Admiral Thrawn return from a distant galaxy and reunite the Imperial remnants and threaten the fragile new Republic government? Like, those are big stakes, right? And, it's not the sequel trilogy with the rise of the First Order and so forth. It's not the original trilogy with the rebellion striking off against an evil galactic empire. This is a murder mystery. And it's not even a murder mystery of who's committing the murders. It's not a whodunit. It's more of a whydunit. And gentlemen, I love seeing the Jedi who are not involved in the Clone Wars acting as generals or as forgotten desert hermits. I love seeing them basically be the galaxy's police force in this instance. They are going to crime scenes. They are collecting evidence and clues. They are interviewing suspects. We've thought of the Jedi in so many different ways, as samurai, as peacekeepers, as generals. But here it is that, put them in sort of a 1-hour cop show kind of mold, something that Star Wars has never done before. And the elasticity of this concept, to me, it's outstanding. And it gives each episode a natural rhythm and tension. I think the closest thing we got to it was, I think George Lucas and Jonathan Hale wanted to give that vibe for episode 2, Attack of the Clones, with Obi-Wan investigating Jango Fett and, why did he kill why did they try to kill Padme? Why did they then kill the assassin? The missing planet of Kamino. They were trying to go for that, and then at the end, they had to kind of drop that investigatory arc and get us ready for the actual beginning of the Clone Wars. So this is the closest in spirit, I think, to what they were trying to do there 20 years ago. Even some of the music by composer Michael Abels echoes Attack of the Clones specifically. He takes some of John Williams' themes, if you will, and he makes them his own. He's not just replaying John Williams' music. But if you go back and listen to the orchestral score, it sounds like it belongs in the John Williams neighborhood, but it's still coming from Mr. Abels. You might recognize his work. He is the composer for Jordan Peele, and he's done all 3 of Jordan Peele's big screen films, Get Up, Us, and Nope. And He's award-winning. He won the Pulitzer Prize for Music in 2023 for an opera that he co-wrote called Omar. So he is now taking the baton from the John Williams legacy and giving us its own take there. But I love the mystery angle of it, and based off of that, I love that the Jedi may be culpable. And what I mean by that is we have a kill list out there of 4 Jedi. And by the end of this 2-episode premiere, 2 of them are already gone. And that leaves only 2 left on the board, the Wookiee Jedi Kelnaka and our own Jedi Master Sol. And May, who is taking orders from an unnamed villain, and we know he's a villain because he's got a red saber, she has one of the greatest Star Wars initiative tasks I think we've seen in any of the material. He's challenged her that she must make a kill of a Jedi without a weapon, and says, without a weapon, what you kill is the dream that the Jedi have selfishly passed on to the galaxy and hold it in its grip. So if you think about May and how she moves through here, she takes down 2 Jedi in these 2 episodes. And now she has basically Kelnaka and Jedi Master Sol. I don't think she's going to be able to take down the Wookiee without some form of weapon. That's just me. Which means we're setting up already this incredible match between Jedi Master Sol and May, where she's going to have to find a way to dispatch him without using a weapon. And how does that even work? What does that look like? That's just one of the questions that the show leaves me that I'm absolutely fascinated by. I love how Amanda Stenberg characterizes both twins just through body language. Like you never, I mean, and costumes, but you're never like thinking, wait, which one am I looking at? You know who Osha is, you know who May is, and maybe they'll play around with that duality. Maybe, we've already seen Osha try to impersonate May and do so actually quite badly because she couldn't bring up that confidence, that arrogance, that sneer that May showed when she confronted Master Indara. So I think it's very premature to judge a series based on 2 hours worth of content when we know we have at least another 6 to come and possibly more after that. But this thing has already laid out a roadmap of where it can possibly take us. And I'm as excited as any Force user would be to see what surprises they have. Are these Jedi, these 4 Jedi who were stationed on May and Osha's homeworld, like, were they responsible for this fire that allegedly claimed the life of May? Why did May not know that Osha survived? It's one thing that Osha says, oh, my sister was killed, and then discovers she's alive, but we learn that May had no idea Osha had survived. So what exactly happened? And I suspect that we might be flashing back, I hope, to that night in question as to what happened. And I suspect we'll see some Jedi who we think have already joined with the Force. We may see them in a flashback and see again, did they betray the order? Did they betray the code? Did they make a tough decision that any one of us might have made? These are all things that I was thinking about, and I can't wait to see what's next. So I turn it over to the council to see what your reactions were.
Well, I'll jump in and say that I too very much enjoyed the why done it, who done it, situation here. I loved the prison ship, where she's trying to do the right thing, and at every turn it just blows up in her face, quite literally. I thought that was brilliant. It was entertaining. I will say it's at times some of the humor felt a little forced.
Forced, yep.
But I really enjoy that the Jedi in this show, they seem somewhat nefarious. And that is an intriguing picture to paint of this High Republic era. Is just like, it doesn't feel as clean, as holy as... I mean, even in the prequels, you could argue it felt very, like, sanctimonious, but pure. And so it begs the question of, what happened on this planet really. And I agree. I think we're going to get flashbacks. I do think what colored my opinion of the first episode was within minutes you you kill off Carrie-Anne Moss. And I'm sorry, but that was like one of the things that excited me quite a bit about this show was that Carrie-Anne Moss was going to play a Jedi. And she played it perfectly. So I'm really hoping we get at least a few episodes with her in it through flashback, Force Ghost, something like that, where we get something fleshed out. I mean, obviously, we're so early on in the story; it's hard to judge. And I think about how Lord Uther reacted with Book of Boba Fett the first time, how some of us have had our opinions colored by some of the prequel or sequel movies the first time, and then later on maybe changed it for better or worse. And I think even to a certain extent, the original trilogy, through the lens of all the modern Star Wars we know, our opinions change and sway. That being said, I think a lot of really cool things happened here that, frankly, I hadn't expected. I really didn't expect a cast driven very much by women and people of color to be central characters leading a show. This is pretty strange for Star Wars. I mean, just to be blunt, most other Star Wars shows are fairly white. I mean, not that I don't think that race or anything like that has to play in a big role, but I think the beauty of Star Wars is that that's never been a spoken factor. And now you're getting stories told by actors of varying backgrounds, and it still felt like it was in that Star Wars universe. So to me, that's your first major success, because that's a hard sell. Is to use characters that, one, are not established movie canon, and then two, on top of that, are not necessarily what we've come to know of feature characters of the Jedi. I mean, Ahsoka aside, but even at that, a lot of your main characters are still predominantly, what you would expect. And I don't mean that in any kind of like, this is how it should be way, by any stretch. I think it's fantastic that they're doing something new and novel. And I was really pleasantly surprised because I'll admit I went into it with a skepticism. I'm like, I don't know, these are aliens. I mean, truthfully, like prosthesis aliens, the Padawan with the stuff on her head, and she's young, like a young girl. You know how I feel about child actors. I don't like them. But she grew on me in 2 episodes, which is pretty impressive because characters I've never met before typically take a while to grow on me. And that's just me being honest. But I have to say, despite some of the forced humor, despite some of the like awkward situations that come up because of age and status, I was pretty impressed. I have to say, I came into it with a healthy bit of skepticism because how do you tell this story in particular in a way that's going to captivate me as much as a Mandalorian or a Book of Boba? Telling stories from familiar characters or familiar points of view. There's no Baby Yoda here. There's no C-3PO. There's no R2-D2. No cameos that I'm expecting to see that are going to be like, oh, I can't wait until, Luke Skywalker shows up. That alone, like, when I first heard about Mandalorian, when I heard that Luke Skywalker showed up in an episode, I was like, all right, I got to watch this show now. Like, just to get to that one moment. I don't need that in this show. It's already captivated me, and I give this show tremendous credit for casting Manny Jacinto because that guy is a brilliant actor. One of my favorites. I loved him in The Good Place. I've watched that show like 5 times all the way through, mostly for his character, to be honest. And he's not really typecast. I mean, the character he plays in here is a little similar, but I think is much more conniving and, shall we say, has more brain power. but the guy's just fantastic at what he does. So I very much hope that they don't just kill him off in the next episode or something. I hope he sticks with it through at least a few episodes into the series. But it was interesting. It was unexpected to be so new and feel so different. But it wasn't a bad thing. I think, like Lord Uther said, with the sequel movies, some of the newness of it came across as a bit of a bad thing. I don't think that was quite the case here.
It's fascinating that you say the character of Kimar by Manny Jacinto, because as I was watching it, when the Jedi come to interrogate him, I mean, we've already seen him interacting with May, but I thought he was very convincing. As like, I don't know what's going on. What I mean, we know he's lying, and they probably know that he's lying, but he pulls off lying in such a way that we marvel at his ability to just be like, nope, don't know anything about that. And so his duplicity, which is obvious to the viewer, if not all of the characters in the moment, I thought was extraordinary there. So, and to your point, Andor is also a show in the Star Wars universe that is done by outsiders, if you will. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, they may have watched episodes, they may have given notes, I'm sure, because Filoni is the chief creative officer of Lucasfilm, but they're not credited as producers. They're not doing the day-to-day stuff on these shows, Andor and The Acolyte, to name two of them. And so, again, we're getting a true Star Wars outsider perspective on, oh boy, wouldn't it be great if? And again, Tony Gilroy for Andor, famous for saying, I don't care about Star Wars. I saw an opportunity to use Star Wars as a vehicle to tell a story about fascism and radicalization and all of that. And we know that Andor is simply brilliant. But here's Leslie Headland doing, again, she's a fangirl of the prequels. She's giving us the prequel to the prequels. And this is, it's a different track than Ahsoka and Obi-Wan and The Mandalorian and Boba Fett. But it as you say, it kind of neatly fits into the firmament, we hope, of Star Wars storytelling. So that's...
Absolutely.
I love that.
And I have to put mad respect on everybody involved for being brave enough to undertake such a new approach to Star Wars, and to cast who they cast and bring something different. I mean, and that's probably, in my skeptical Star Wars fan way, that's probably like something I've sort of been asking for, is something truly different. Because you think about the Skywalker stories, you really don't need to tell half of them for it to be compelling cinema, right? And it's like everybody always says, I want a new story. I want a new story. Tell me a different story I haven't heard before. Here it is. And I will be frank, at first I was like, I don't know. But by the end of episode 2, I was like, all right. I got what I asked for, and I gotta say, I can't wait for the next episode. So, Lord Uther, I'm dying to hear what you thought about our dearly departed Carrie Ann Moss and the others here on this series. But I see you're having some technical difficulties.
Well,
So
isn't it funny that
Psyllium
you two had such a visceral reaction? I mean, we needed an inciting incident. We needed the murder of a Jedi to get the whole thing up and running. But obviously, within a short, I think it's 10 to 12 minutes of screen time, you already wanted more, clearly. Because, again, at every turn, she's slashing away at the knives and she's dodging May's, combat fighting. I mean, it's a beautiful Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the wuxia wire fu that we're getting that again has not really been shown in Star Wars. Much more hand to hand, much more and athletic. Soul does it with May when they try to apprehend her in the courtyard. So it's, again, you might say to yourself, "Oh, they're doing the Matrix again," but it works. The fight choreography here was strong.
Oh yeah.
So
And I think that the coolest thing, like you said, is like it. Despite the fact it didn't end the way I might have hoped, and Carrie-Anne Moss was not a prominent figure, it did have me. It tasked me, and I shall see it. And I mean, I have very frequently in shows where they write off or kill off a character that I'm invested in, and I was pre-invested in Carrie-Anne Moss because I've been waiting to see her in something in a long time. I was mad. Frankly, I was mad, and then I was like, "But I gotta know what are they going to do? Like, what's happened?" It was great.
anger leads to hate, and
again,
hate leads to the dark.
yeah, exactly. And it's so. I have such respect for the fact that they had the gumption to do something like that, because with Carrie-Anne Moss being billed early in the series, I was like, oh man, this is going to be really great, and then to immediately just say nope.
Right? Why didn't we kill?
Fantastic.
Why didn't we
I
kill
mean,
the guy who was meditating first? Like, kind of a.
Gutsy. I mean, truly gutsy craft work, and so hats off.
I love
I
that.
would
I
normally
love
say
that meditating Jedi. Like, she couldn't even penetrate, and it's like, oh, he hasn't talked to anybody in a decade, and then she's like, she lowers his
The
defenses
ultimate-
by.
I mean, the ultimate Jedi move, and him not talking and not fighting, defending.
Right.
Is there anything else that like wrapped you into this more than that? I was like, what's his deal? Like, what does he know? He's not going to tell us. He feels this amount of guilt for a Jedi that he wouldn't talk for a decade?
Right.
I mean, that's rare in a television series to have a character essentially not say anything. I mean, no, he has a couple of lines, begs for forgiveness, but I just, it took the couch out from under me, let's say. The other thing is I found interesting is Manny Jacinto's character seemed to kind of know stuff he shouldn't know.
Right.
And that
Right.
leads me to believe, like, is this person more important than maybe we're led to believe thus far? I will say, like, there's breadcrumbs. This show does not give you that much to buy you into it, because it's assuming, one, you're going to consume it. If you're a Star Wars fan, chances are you're going to consume Star Wars media. But it gives you just enough to be like, I gotta know what's next.
And quite frankly, at this stage, I'm more interested in what the Jedi may or may not have done to sort of precipitate this crisis versus the identity of what appears to be another dark user of the Force. Like, I'm not so, keen on, what's his background? What's it like? That does feel a bit familiar, albeit we need a good villain, and I hope that when the chips are finally put on the table, that it's as good as a Darth Maul or a General Grievous or Boba Fett or whomever. But I want to know, like I say, like what choices were made or not made that, and seemingly that they're like, well, we'll just put this in the past and we won't think about it anymore. And obviously, as you say, Master Torben, he was consumed with it and spent a better part of 10 years walling himself off from everything but the Force. But again, Saul, there are several moments where he kind of, you look at his face and you think, there's more to it than there. I mean, yes, he's a noble Jedi. He believes in forgiveness and redemption and all of those things. But you feel like, and then with Indara, who comes across in her brief screen time as somebody who's just very like resolute, like, I've made my decision and this is how it's going to be. And, I'm not going to be swelled by guilt or doubt, or like, she's like the epitome of like granite Jedi. Very confident.
Yeah.
I mean, she's killed because May takes advantage of that humanity where she's going to endanger an innocent civilian, and she like force halts the knife, but that leaves her vulnerable to to the attack there. So I'm
Yeah, I think
yeah.
I think it's got me as a Star Wars fan, and that leads me to our, as oft we do on the Graying Jedi Council, our lightsaber kyber crystal ratings, and we have a new color with this show.
We do.
A yellow lightsaber. And of course, we know there's going to be some more interesting lightsabers coming up, but we won't spoil anything thus far. So, Jedi Master Psyllium Maas, what kyber crystal flares up your lightsaber?
It's kind of funny you mentioned that.
episodes 1 and 2?
I went with a yellowish green tennis ball that actually is courtesy of the Stephen King AT&T adaptation of Mr. Mercedes, which, if my light wasn't so bright, you could read that. This is a prop tennis ball from that show, yellow-green, if you will, because I do like a good new golden rod lightsaber, light blade, laser sword. Like I said, I'm excited that we're getting sort of this investigation mystery, and as you say, following the breadcrumbs. And if we can mix that with the politics, if we can mix that with the action scenes, if we can get some good character beats in here, characters showing us shades that we didn't think we'd expect, if, you know, we might start to look at May in a new light, depending on the information. We might look at Jedi Master Sol and Endara in a different light, and Kelnaka. That's what I'm hopeful we'll get. Is it's a different order on the menu for the Star Wars saga.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I have to say the first episode, if we were just judging it on that, my disappointment would be somewhat measurable. However, I think there was enough good stuff that happened in that episode that I wouldn't give it a red lightsaber.
Right.
It would probably have been a blue.
A soft blue. Okay.
But being that this is a 2-episode debut, I'm going to rate it as a 2-parter, as a single episode, like a long movie, and I'm going to give it a Ziploc baggy green.
Nice.
To match my nails.
To match your name.
Yes, I did enjoy myself. I really, I think I've developed a better appreciation for it since I finished watching and have had time to think about it, because it really is so different. It's so new and yet still so Star Wars that it answers the call of, I want a new story, I want something fresh, without beating us over the head with something completely different. So for me, green lightsaber all the way. And
hey,
Lord
is it
Uther-
my turn to talk yet, or what?
Yeah.
I mean,
Lord
finally,
Uther's
we've been
finally
sitting
back.
on
you're going to let me talk? Because that's when I'm only showing up from now on, is when it's my turn to talk. So you're just going to have to go without me every once in a while. Too bad. I don't even know what was said, so I'm going to bring up my own stuff. Too bad.
Yes.
Here's my question.
Okay.
Do we need more distance from the Skywalkers, from the Skywalker saga,
When you say, do we need
than 100 years?
Because
Yes.
as UrzaMaster said, like he kind of had this.
I wasn't here for it.
No. I'm saying he had this idea of, well, show me something new, right? Show me something different. And we couldn't quantify what that might look like. But now at least we have the first step into a larger universe, right? Again, just like sort of Andor took us to the ground level of what was going on during the Empire. Here we have, again, the Jedi, but these probably are not your father's Jedi. At least that's what I'm hopeful. I can't say that with any certainty, but they just look and they sound a little different. That Yord Fander character from Charlie Barnett, he looks like a real. I can't say the words on here because we're a PG-13 show, but
Shut your.
yeah, he is somebody who looks officious and prickly and the kind of guy that you would avoid in the office break room if he came in and said, "Hey, what's going on? Are we going out tonight?" "Oh no, I've got plans. Sorry, the kids have got soccer practice. Maybe next time, Yord. We'll hit you up." So that's, yes. I think we need as many non-Skywalker stories as people are willing to put up with.
Okay, yes or no questions. Ready? Do you want to see Yoda? Yes or no?
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
Do you want to see Palpatine? Yes or no?
I'm going to say no. If we stay on this mystery thing, like I say, it brings the story down to a very micro level. So I'm going to say I don't want to see the Galactic Senate and Palpatine and Mon Mothma. Not Mon Mothma's probably not been born yet, but yeah, I want to steer clear of those for this one, I think.
Okay. Do you want to see Yaddle? Yes or no?
Oh yeah,
No.
yes.
What? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I got that from the two of you. Okay. Oh, what was the last thing I wanted to ask about? Oh, Ezra didn't use a lightsaber.
Well, I think what's his name, Professor Wang and him were building one during Ahsoka. They may have finished. They may or may not have finished in before all heck broke loose on that world. But yes, for the most part, he
Okay.
wasn't using. He wasn't using a lightsaber. He had one during the animated series. It was destroyed, I believe. And then I think he and Wang were working on it, and he's like, use this crystal, your former master.
That's right.
Right.
Okay.
But eventually, yes.
Well, yeah. And then the other thing I liked, well, there were a lot of things I liked, but I don't want to take up any more of our podcasters' time with just me talking.
No.
I like the Pip. I like the Pip robot because to me it was a Fallout, a total call to Fallout with that. And then the force projection is very Kylo Ren Rey thing, right? Like with May and
OSHA? Saul?
yeah, because they're aren't they force projecting when they're talking to each other?
Oh, I couldn't tell if
think
it was a
it's incidental.
hallucination or, yeah, maybe they are. That's interesting.
Because to me it would be very Kylo Ren Rey force projection-y kind of always like they were there.
Wow.
So that was something else. Well, hey, when I'm actually on the show, I contribute just a little bit.
Spectacular.
When my internet doesn't die.
Spectacular.
And then one more question before I do my absolutely incredible lightsabers, if you guys have not yet. Do we need callbacks? In other words, do we need to see the Trade Federation? Do we need those things? Or that's why I was asking like the Yoda Palpatine question, or can we just go without it? Or is it nice to have it?
I like the Trade Federation showing up. I actually like those aliens from the prequels, so I thought it was interesting to see. They kind of provide a little comic relief.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm there with that. Please sound off, because again, I think your comments would echo UrzaMaster's. Did you suddenly feel a darkness in the Force when Indara met an early end? I mean, if Sabine can survive a lightsaber,
I was completely upset with that.
okay.
I was very upset with it. But then my thought is along UrzaMaster's thought process. We're going to see her in flashbacks and stuff like that. And,
They hadn't invented Bacta yet,
I'm
apparently. So Bacta was not the guided.
man, I really think they're making a mistake with that Bacta thing. So I hope we see her again. And Master Saul, by the way, has already moved up my Jedi list of favorite Jedi Masters. He's already moving up that list. I like him that much. He seems a little Qui-Gon Jinn-y.
Yes.
But in terms of his thought process and not always wanting to go for the blade, in a sense, right away or something like that, he was giving off some Qui-Gon Jinn type of vibe. Even though I think Qui-Gon possibly didn't dabble with the dark side, but didn't always follow the light. Like, I kind of feel like he was really the first true gray Jedi, but at least that I know.
Can I just ask you guys, since none of us know anything, and this thing, it's a lot of white snow that requires footprints. Will you be more or less enthused if by the end of this first season we have flipped the script and it's really the Jedi are the bad guys and May is the most misunderstood? Or is that something that, as Star Wars fans or storytelling fans, that you'd say, yeah, I want to see the Game of Thrones version of Star Wars or something dark. I mean, like something that really pushes the envelope.
It's funny you say that because last night while we were watching, I said to my wife, "We got to watch Game of Thrones again."
Ah,
Because I don't know if I was getting a slight vibe from it. Here's why I don't want that to happen. That to me, that's what the movies were about, right? The good guys were really causing all the problems. Yes, in a sense, their overbearingness and things like that. That's why what I like about this is what you brought up there, Psyllium Maas, at least for as long as I was in the chat. It is kind of a whodunit kind of thing that they're doing right now, and that's actually why I like the second episode so much, and I would like it to keep going that route, and just let their... Again, I feel like it's kind of tropey if they go with the flippity-floppity, oh yeah, you know, the Jedi are the ones who screwed this up, or they're the bad guys and all this. I don't know, I don't think I can go that route.
Ursa?
I like the laying of the seeds of the dark side. I mean, you get it right in the classroom scene. I see fire.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, there you go.
right there. I think what it is it's the seeds of uncertainty amongst the Jedi. You know, we're catching the Jedi at a point where they're infested with politics, basically. They even bring up their political enemies. And I hate to say it, but that's not how the Jedi should be. So it stands to reason. I would find it a little predictable, though, if it came around that, like, oh, actually these 4 Jedi started the fire, and even though it was unintentional, they could have done more, they could have done something differently. It's like, it seems a little easy.
Yes. Tropey,
I would rather it be that May actually did start the fire, but maybe it was an accident, and maybe she was trying to learn the Force from one of the Jedi, and they identified her as the Padawan and not Osha, and
See,
something went a little haywire, which would get back to the I see a fire thing. And
ooh, yeah.
It would feel nice.
There you go. I thought of Saul, you know, when they were talking about, well, we couldn't save your sister, we couldn't save May, what have you. I thought of Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like, Obi-Wan leaves Anakin to die on Mustafar. Like, he doesn't ever, you know, go check for the pulse or boot him into the lava to be sure. And then it's a stunning surprise to him years later when he discovers, oh, Anakin survived and he's actually a Dark Lord of the Sith now. So I was envisioning in my head some scenario in which Saul basically condemned May to death, perhaps. And I'm only using him. I know there were 3 others, but basically was like, well, we can't save her, or, you know, I'm not going to risk my neck for her, or something like that. And then, I mean, but then how does she escape it? And again, how does she not know that Osha, like, she was just as stunned, like, wait, Osha's dead. No, she's not. She's, you know, I just talked to her. Like, so that was interesting. So lots to go.
So, Lord Uther, give us your lightsaber rating. We've given ours. It's your turn.
Well, see, originally I was going to go with a red because I don't like Carrie Moss dying at the very beginning. So eventually I kind of went the route and it lightened up a little bit and went orange.
Ooh.
And I was like, hey, this first episode, pretty good. Really, the second episode, because we know this is all just to set up these first 2 episodes anyway, right? It's totally laying the groundwork. And I said to myself at the beginning of the second episode, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely going towards the light side. And finally, by the end of that episode, I said, it all depends on where it goes. So I'm going to go with the blue because I learned my lesson from the Book of Boba Fett that we shouldn't just immediately judge. And after the series is over, I'm going to have to go back and watch again. For right now, though, I'm at a blue because I know these 2 episodes were setting everything up.
This is like the diabetes version of Hot Ones. I love it. Way to go, Lord Uther.
There you go. Shout out Hot Ones and Heatonist. And if you haven't checked them out, you should. Then tell all their subscribers to subscribe to us here at Pending Rebrand and the Graying Jedi podcast. And tell you what, if we can get 50 comments of your favorite Hot Ones wing sauce, we will do the wing gauntlet. on an episode of the Graying Jedi
Oh,
podcast.
no doubt.
Okay.
I will 100%.
Boneless
yes.
wings. Yes.
So 50 comments below. Click that link and subscribe and stay up to date with us when we hit that mark. Be it now, be it in the future, we will run the Hot Ones gauntlet of that season. Shout out Heatonist. Until then, when we return to the galaxy far, far away next week for more Acolyte on Disney Plus, I say to you, may the Force be with you. Always.
The Force is with me. I am one with the Force.